Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e. And we could talk about stealth, but I have done so many videos on stealth, hiding, hidden, using the hide action in combat. No, what we're going to talk about is unseen attackers and unseen targets. It is one of those rules that a lot of people get confused, and to be honest, I can understand because there's a lot of elements going on at the same time where you can get quite confused. And so it's not unreasonable to expect some sort of clarification and explanation in this area. What I'm going to do is I'm going to explain unseen attackers and unseen targets, and then I'm going to give you an example using maps and miniatures. And then what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to cover all of the stuff that I've pulled out of Sage Advice and some of the questions you might have or quandaries you might have that I can cover and help you come to a decision on how to rule it. Because unfortunately, some of this is going to require your Dungeon Master to do some ruling because it's not all clear cut, unfortunately. So let's talk about unseen attackers and targets. Combatants often try to escape their foe's notice by hiding, casting the invisibility spell, or lurking in darkness. When you attack a target that you can't see, you have disadvantage on the attack roll. This is true whether you're guessing the target's location or you're targeting a creature that you can hear but you can't see. If the target isn't in the location that you're targeting, you automatically miss. But the Dungeon Master typically just says that the attack missed, not whether you guessed the target's location correctly. When a creature can't see you, you have advantage on attack rolls against it. If you're hidden, so that's when you're hidden, you're basically unseen and unheard. When you make an attack, you give away your location when the attack, whether the attack hits or misses. It doesn't matter whether you're going to hit the target or miss the target. If you make the attack, you give away your location. Okay, so there's an awful lot to break down there. And what I want to do with regard to this is actually show you some of the aspects of how to play this out in your game and talk about, because a lot of people are using maps and miniatures, and what happens with maps and miniatures is we will get into a situation where people start saying, well, what about I'm looking in the right direction and they're coming up from behind. So how do we deal with those sorts of things? So I have a scene for you today, and I'm going to pull that up right now and we'll cover it. So first off, this is our opening scene. It's in a township. It's late at night, and this is our wizard, and this is our horrible creature that's sneaking up on the wizard. Now, the first thing we're going to deal with is there are no facing rules in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. So facing doesn't apply. So this is really a Dungeon Master call. So if you need to deal with facing, then whatever your Dungeon Master says is how it goes. That's the first thing we need to deal with. Now, if this creature was invisible, then creeping up behind the wizard to make an attack is not going to be a problem. That's the only part that I can say is reasonably simple for you. Okay, invisible creatures. But we're going to go into it in a bit more detail. Okay, so what happens if you make an attack while hidden? So let's get rid of the wizard, and we'll bring in our ranger right here. They are hidden. They're hiding, they're unseen, they're unheard. They're using heavy foliage or heavy obscurity in the foliage here. And we've got, say, a couple of goblins that are sort of making their way down the street because they've sort of managed to find their way past the main gate. Yes, absolutely. Okay, you're classified as being hidden. Maybe it's just hiding. Hiding means that you can still potentially be heard, but you're unseen. Okay. Invisibility is different again, and we'll get into that. Or you're unseen, so you gain advantage. So you grab 2 dice for your attack roll, and you take the highest result. So I rolled a 1 and a 14, get rid of the 1, and we take the 14, we add that to our attack modifier, whatever that might be. In this case, let's say it's a level 1 character, so 14 plus 5 is going to be 19. So, and we can attack any one of these creatures. Okay, so that's covered that aspect of it. What happens though if I were to step out of cover and then make the attack? Well, now I'm seen, so I don't get advantage. Okay. What about if I'm hiding and I'm using a melee attack? Can I then, if I'm hiding or hidden, and then can I step out and make my attack? Do I still get advantage? No, because you've exposed yourself. This is one of those things where facing rules really comes down to the Dungeon Master deciding whether that's going to work. So that's for a creature that is not invisible, but using some sort of heavy obscurity or cover. What about an invisible creature? An invisible creature that makes a ranged attack. So we have, say, an invisible creature here, and they don't have to be in the bushes. They could be anywhere and make an attack. Yes, they absolutely will be getting advantage on the goblins. Okay, they don't need to be using cover. They are invisible. Now, normal invisibility will be lost once you make an attack, and so you'll become visible after that. But greater invisibility, not the case. Okay, so what about an enemy tries to make attacks against an invisible or unseen character that might be hiding or hidden? They have disadvantage, where you roll 2 dice and take the lowest result. So even if the goblins figure out that this character is in that location, they still have disadvantage, okay, on the attack, which means you roll the dice, you take the lowest result. So I rolled a 2 and a 10, so I take the 2 and I add my attack modifier for my goblin of 2 to the dice roll. Okay, that's how it works. But do not put out a miniature on the table for the players because they will metagame and assume that they know the location of the creature because you put the miniature out. Okay, so I'm only putting out miniatures that are invisible for demonstration purposes. So that's one thing I want you to remember is don't do that. Okay. Now, if the character was not making a ranged attack and they were still invisible, yes, they could get right up close and make an attack. It doesn't matter if honestly, it has absolutely nothing to do with whether the character can be heard or smelt. If they can't be seen, okay, the goblin has disadvantage on their attack rolls. You roll 2 dice, take the lowest result. I rolled a 12, got a 9, so the 9 is the one we take. That means that if you are invisible and you make a melee attack, yes, you absolutely get to roll 2 dice and have advantage, and you take the highest result. So I rolled 2 15s, so it doesn't matter. Okay, but whichever dice is the highest is the one you take. That's while you're invisible. As soon as you're using normal invisibility, you're going to become visible. Greater invisibility, you stay invisible, and the benefit continues. Okay, so those are the basics and how you apply it in your game. Now, there's one other aspect that might come up, and that is when you're using total cover. So, for example, maybe you have a character over here that is using total cover, something like this umbrella to hide behind, and can't be seen. So essentially either hidden or hiding. And they want to peek around the corner and make a shot. Do they still get advantage on their attack? Well, this is one of those things that you're going to have to talk with your Dungeon Master about. They might say, look, you peeking around the corner means that you are making yourself visible. It's the same sort of thing that I talked about before when you step out into the open. Okay? Making an attack from heavy obscurity is a little bit different. But putting your head around the corner, you're going to have to talk to your Dungeon Master about that sort of thing. Okay, let's talk about sage advice and some of the things that you might have as questions that we need to cover. So first off, the alert feat works against hidden, hiding, invisible or unseen attackers. Yes, that means that you won't be surprised. Okay, you can still use your alert feat. That's the whole point of the alert feat, is that it works with unseen attackers. Darkness. Yes, darkness hides a creature, so unseen attacker rules do apply when you are standing in some sort of darkness. Remember, if you're in darkness, heavy obscurity, you cannot be seen. Essentially, creatures trying to look into that area where you are going to be blind. If you are hidden or hiding, the subtle spell feature can be used to cast a spell, okay, and remain unseen if you do not cast a spell that is going to be an attack. Okay, if you're not casting a spell and you are hiding or hidden and you have this subtle spell feature, yes, you can do that. But if you cast a spell that would cause damage or be an attack of some kind, then unfortunately your location will be given away. But if you're not doing that, you are essentially going to be able to continue casting that spell and you will not be noticed by anybody and you will not give away your location. What about something like opportunity attacks? Well, here's a good example. The goblin is fighting the invisible warrior here. And you decide, I want to move away. I'm invisible. I'm using greater invisibility. I'm making attacks. The goblin has disadvantage. Does that mean when I step away that the goblin will get to make an attack against my character who is invisible or unseen? Well, unfortunately, with opportunity attacks, if you can't see the attacker, you cannot make an opportunity attack. And it doesn't mean you apply disadvantage. There is just simply no attack to make. Very, very simple. Okay. What about dealing with something like heavy obscurity? So heavy obscurity, which is like darkness or heavy foliage, total cover, and invisibility. This essentially are the key things that will make you unseen. Okay. What happens if you peek around a corner? We've already talked about that, peeking around a corner from total cover. And here's the one that I think a lot of people get confused by, and I'm going to cover this right now. Here we have our ranger who is in heavy obscurity in the bushes, and they are unseen, unheard. What happens? They make a bow shot. They try to shoot one of the goblins. It will give away your location. Making that shot will give away your location, absolutely. But giving away your location when you make an attack does not mean that you can be seen. You might have been heard, your location might have been given away, but if you're in something like heavy obscurity or darkness, you're still unseen. That means then the goblin tries to make an attack, whether it be ranged, and it might be a little bit more complicated if it's melee, okay? But that still means you're applying disadvantage to the attacks against that target. Particularly if it's darkness, you're still going to be getting, goblins still going to get disadvantage on their attacks against you because they can't see you, okay? If you're in heavy obscurity, the dungeon master might say, look, if you're at range, it's going to be disadvantage to try and attack you, but if they get up close enough or get into that location where the heavy obscurity is and it's dense foliage, I'm going to remove something like the disadvantage on the attack for the goblin against you. Okay, so those are the basics in terms of unseen attackers or unseen attacks. If there's any questions or feedback that you have, put it down in the comments section. Remember, I have many videos for players and dungeon masters on the core rules and every aspect of the game really, and you're welcome to go and check out those videos later on. I have a Patreon page where you can support me so that I keep making videos like this, and also patrons get first dibs on what sort of content I make, and also they get exclusive content. That's one of the perks of being a patron. I have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon where you can buy stuff online, and I get a small commission, which is very helpful. Now remember, share, like, and subscribe. Make sure to share this video. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live. I go live a lot. And when I publish new videos, which I also do. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.